So I got to tell you right off the bat, right? The first question I had going into this film, was it too soon? I mean, it feels like we just said bye to the Henry Cavill Superman from the last DCEU, let alone if you believe there really is a comic book movie fatigue or a superhero movie fatigue. But I think I'm happy to say I don't think it was. Now, the film overall was decent. It was fun. It was exciting. It was colorful. Definitely on the colorful side. It was slightly emotional, I'd say. It even brought me back to when I was a kid for a moment. The visuals, the sound design. I really thought a man could fly. A Rotten Tomatoes rating seemed like it's holding, but my thing is, did it stick the landing? Now, Superman himself, played by David Corenswet, and I admit I haven't seen too much of what he's done prior to doing the Superman, but I thought he did a decent job, particularly for this Superman in this metropolis, if you will. I will say he had the look right. He had the hair, he had the chin, but it seemed like he lacked that stoicism. It seemed like he didn't even put no fear in any heart of the opposition or the big bad. Now, I will say the role that the writing that this Superman called for, I will say Corn Sweat nailed it in that aspect, but I'm not so sure this version of Superman is what we needed specifically for a DCU reboot. Now, a lot of folks said that this movie, because it was so colorful, it seemed like it came right out of a comic book. But I feel like we can say that about a lot of MCU films. To me, this movie more reminded me of the Lois and Clark show from way, way, way back in the day. We talking late 90s, early 2000s. That Lois and Clark, it feels like they made a film specifically out that show. And really, when I think about this film from the top down and James Gunn given the assignment for Superman and the DCU going forward, I'm not sure if he's the right guy for this particular character. I mean, James Gunn always has this signature thing. Some call it quirky, some call it campy, some call it corny. And I think that directing style is great for a Slither or a Peacemaker, but it just doesn't seem like James Gunn is the guy for the DCU going forward. Let alone, how can we go so colorful in this Superman and still be able to bring in Batman, particularly the Patterson version, into this DCU? I'm just not so sure that that's going to work. And then, did we really need a Justice League now, or a Justice Gang, or a semi version of the Justice League? Did we really need that now, or should this have just been a standalone Superman movie? Now, I'm not saying there wasn't a couple of standouts. Mr. Fantastic really was fantastic. I'm just saying, did we need them now? It's like James Gunn can't help himself. He always has to have some type of ragtag group he has to put together just to sustain a film. All I'm saying is, for a 15-year Superman reboot, this movie should have just been about Superman on an island, standing on business, solo. Now that brings us to Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. I thought this was an amazing casting. Now, personally, I'm a Michael Rosenbaum guy. He was just much more down to earth as far as the Lex Luthor goes, in my opinion. But Nicholas Hoult did an amazing job in this role. I mean, I thought he was kind of fierce in a childish way, but definitely unstable. For a moment, reminded me of Kylo Ren. The approach that this Lex brought, he made it clear and apparent that he only cared about destroying Superman and nothing else but destroying Superman. I mean, dude was a little unhinged as well. He done kicked a couple of girls out, put a couple of girls in jail. Then dude was throwing pencils off the desk a couple of times. Like, dude was making some dick moves. But I will say, playing Russian roulette with himself, that was a little over the top. That was a little much. Lois Lane, played by Rachel Brosnahan, she was absolutely wonderful here. You know, I'll stop right there. Forget about Superman. She is a super underrated actor. Her performance on the Amazon show, Miss Marvelous Maisel, incredible. But back to her role as Lois Lane, the one thing I'll give this film, the chemistry between her and Corenswet was off the charts, which is rare in a lot of superhero movies. It's normally always about the superhero. It's not normally about the love interest in most cases, but it absolutely, absolutely worked here. She's by far my favorite Lois Lane to date. What I really liked about her in this role, there was a scene with her and Clark where they kind of got into it, and she straight up stood her ground, no back down. It's like her tenacity that she brought to the character to get down to the truth in like a somewhat mock interview just popped off the screen. But for sure, I expect to see her in Superman movies going forward, even all throughout the DCU. Now, I got to talk about my personal favorite character in the film, Mr. Terrific, played by Eddie Gathegi. While I wasn't a huge fan of the Justice Gang even being a thing in this film, I didn't feel like the first Superman movie needed to be a team up. I'm still sticking on that. But Mr. Terrific really was terrific. I could have actually watched another 10 minutes of his character. Having not been too familiar with the character from the comics specifically, it was a joy to see him do his work with the T-spheres he had going. And he was highly intellectual and technical at the same time. Just overall, a very unique character. Even a great candidate for a solo film in the DC universe, in my opinion. I'm sure he's somewhere in the James Gunn wheelhouse. I can go on and on all day about this film, but I'm going to keep it short here. I may come back and do a video on my dislikes. I can tell you there definitely was a lot of plot holes. I absolutely hated the way they decided to change the Superman origin story, which I was a huge fan of from the Snyderverse. Overall, I thought the film was pretty decent. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. It might be a little high, but it was a fun summer blockbuster film for the family. Thank you for stopping by the channel. I know your time is valuable. My name is V. I'm out.